Hello and welcome to Baldur's Gate 2 Enhanced Edition, the modding and glitching part. So today we're going to be talking about the mods and the glitches. And we're going to start off with just the things you should have by default. First of all, you need to unlock your debug mode in Baldur's Gate 2. Second of all, you need to download something called EE Keeper. So the debug mode is important just because you're going to need to fix global variables when they break, or at some point, maybe you need to, who knows, maybe you need to switch out your character for another character, but that character hasn't been leveled up and you need to make an edit, or maybe you need to just edit the global variables. So that's important to have debug mode activated. And then you have EE Keeper, which is great for editing global variables in general because you can see all the global variables and what they're set to through EE Keeper. So that's definitely something you need to download. So let's go into the two mods which I'm going to be showing today. The first mod is the fix pack. Now this is important for two reasons. First is that, aside from everything you can put into it, which is a lot, and by the way, be careful with how much you do add into it because, the more you add, the greater chance of it breaking your game. So, but two things you should definitely have is the multi-strongholds, because then you can get all the strongholds and it's crazy and it's fun, and you just get a ton more content through your playthrough, unless you plan to play the game like 5 or 6 different times. And the second one is multi-romance. And that's very interesting because it means you can romance more than one person at the same time, and you can just romance multiple people. So that's great. So that's something I would definitely recommend putting in, especially since a lot of my groups are actually based around the fact that you can do multiple romances, and it's kind of based around getting extra narrative. So let's start off with the glitches associated with this, because there is one which is pretty big, and it's actually not even associated with the mod itself. It's something that can occur in game. So, but I think it's relevant because I thought it was actually associated with the multi-romance pack at first. So the issue is that if your character starts talking non-stop, as if it's being selected continuously, then that's an issue, right? So I couldn't figure out what was going on at first, but I knew it was associated with the fact that Gerald's and Victoria's global variables were set to 1. And the way that romance variables work is if it's set to 1, the romance is active. If it's set to 2, the romance is complete. And if it's set to 3, then you've turned the person down. So I thought it was an issue with the multi-romance, that I couldn't have multiple people set to 1 at the same time. But I later found out through extensive, and I mean really extensive research, that in fact the issue had to do with a global variable that you acquire in the Underdark called PHAERNNUENDO. And if that happens to you, you need to set the global variable to 0. So that's the issue. If you're wondering like why your person keeps being selected and keeps talking, that's the issue, and that will save you a lot of time and a lot of problems. So the second mod I want to discuss now is the Imoen romance mod. So let me just change this. Romance mod. So this is something that a lot of people will add to Imoen because either they want to romance her, or they want to just get a bit of extra dialogue to Imoen, because she doesn't have a crazy amount of dialogue, but despite the fact that she's really fun to have in your group. So a lot of people will do this, or they'll add a friendship mod, or they'll do something. But what I really want to talk about is the issues associated with this if you do add it, because there's two. The first one is a glitch that I noticed only 3 hours after it had occurred, which is that Imoen did not spawn properly in the game. And what that means is that when you acquire her under spellhold, she spawns in and then she despawns about a second later. – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– – –– – –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– –– – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – it was not part of the game. So I had to go back about 3 hours and get Imoen again. So the fix to this is that when she spawns in, which is at sort of the beginning of the dialogue with Brody, you have to pause the game as soon as you get out of dialogue mode. And if you pause it fast enough, and I have paused it fast enough, you can get Imoen. You can pause it before she disappears. And then all you have to do is click on your character and then click on her for dialogue mode. And she won't despawn when you've done that. She'll stay around until you have the conversation with her. And when that happens, all you have to do is add her to your party or tell her to go home or do something. But after that, she won't despawn like craziness. So if that doesn't work, then one other thing I would recommend, I guess, is just spawn her in. And you can just spawn her in normally. So the second, that's the big one. That's like the major issue. The second issue is more of a smaller issue, and it's a little bit difficult for me to explain, to sort of get a feel for what the issue actually is. But what I found is that after you finish the Imoen romance, your characters will all say their little piece about what they think about your romance with her. And I had an issue with Keldorn where I went to go fight the Red Dragon. I left the cave, and then Keldorn kept repeating the same dialogue again and again and again, and basically broke the game. And I was unable to track down the global variable for that. And I'm not entirely sure what was going on. And that was the only time that something like that has ever happened. So I'm not entirely sure, again, what was going on there. Other than that, make sure that you review, the path so that you understand sort of the triggers that you have to get with her. The fact that as soon as you leave the Underdark, you should sleep in the Elven Forest, and that sort of triggers, I think, the big one. So that's just something to keep in mind. I hope that this helps you out and that you don't have these issues, but if they do come up, now you know how to deal with them. So good luck, and we'll get started on the next video.